Thank you for staying with us. Some of you were sharing your thoughts with us, but we have something exciting that we're bringing you as we wrap the show. The imperative for reparations to Africans and people of African descent for historical crimes has gained prominence in recent years, more than any other time in history, probably. Now, there is an increased need to unpack how slavery, colonialism, and racism intersect and impact the lives of Black people across the world. It is against this backdrop that the Global Summit on Reparations and Racial Healing was organized in Accra, that is from the 1st of August to the 4th of August, ending yesterday. Well, we're joined in the studio by Dr. Amara Enya, President, Global Black, and there's also Nicole Hannah Jones, founder 1619 Project. Ladies, thank you very much for joining the conversation.
Glad to be here.
So it's interesting because it's just recently on the back of this very event that we heard our president talk about reparation for Black people, the colonized, across the world. But tell us a bit about what you do, basically. I'll start with you, Nicole.
What do we do about reparations, or why did we have the summit?
Why are you having this summit? Basically, what have you done in the past? Why the summit in the first place?
Well, we decided to have the summit because there are a group of us who have been working on the issue of reparations across the diaspora as well as for the continent. And we feel that we are in somewhat of an unprecedented moment where reparations as a societal issue is being taken more seriously and being treated as a legitimate issue, I think the most that we've seen in our lifetimes. So this was an opportunity to bring us all together to strategize on how we move the issue of reparations forward. And of course, we came to Accra because Accra is the birthplace of Pan-Africanism. It is a place where we saw this understanding of all of us as global African citizens who are all facing anti-Blackness and working to move forward.
Amara, what more can you say about this entire event and what culminated in what we're seeing now, this 3-day event that we've seen?
Yeah, so it was important for us to, one, make sure that the entire global Black world was represented. So we have people coming from Europe, from Central and South America, from the US, who are experts and work in the space of reparations. We also have a declaration that came out of this event. It builds on the Abuja Accord from 1993 and the Durban Declaration and Program of Action from 2001. And it asserts, one, the importance of prioritizing reparations, not just as a process of remembering, but as the path forward to the kind of self-determining agency that we want for Africa and for people of African descent around the world. We have a collective strategy that is now in development that engages not just the grassroots, but also we have the African Union Commission has been involved on this question of how to develop a common position for Africa on the issue of reparations and healing. So a lot of this was about building relationships between inside the continent, but also between Africa and the diaspora, so that we can know each other, understand each other, develop collective strategy to challenge and change the systems and structures that from the transatlantic slave trade through colonialism, neocolonialism, continue to exploit and harm.
Now you can look at, especially since we're here in West Africa, the entire West African sub-region, and then the picture of colonialism is so glaring. What was done recently, I was taking a look at some photos. A number of these countries have those points of no return across West Africa, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, other places as well. But when you look at this trend, why would you say reparation is so important that we have to have reparation as you are calling for?
It's important because it is about repairing the harm. This is not something that is just in the past. We are experiencing ongoing legacies of continued exploitation that are represented when we look at international institutions, financial institutions, monetary policy, health policy. When you assess the disparities that people of African descent face around the world, whether in South America, on the continent, in the West, it is clear that there is ongoing harm that is being perpetrated. So reparations is about accountability. So the perpetrators of the harm, it is about repair so that we can actually live with our human rights and our human dignity. It is the path forward to the kind of Africa and Africans, whether in Africa or abroad, that we want and deserve.
Nicole, for you, what would you say are the highlights of this summit that you just had? What stood out for you coming into Ghana for this summit?
Well, there were many highlights. I would say certainly when the president of Ghana spoke out forcefully for reparations. That was a very powerful and necessary moment. We know that this has not been the norm of heads of state on the continent joining with us in the diaspora and calling for reparations. So to us, we hope that that will then help do what Dr. Enya said, is move forward that collective movement towards repair. And then just to be here, for many of us in our ancestral home, I brought 2 students with me who have never been to the continent, and to see them being able to connect with people from across the diaspora. I just was having breakfast with one of them this morning, and he is transformed. He couldn't even articulate what it meant for us to be here together and collectively working for the betterment of our people. So I think I'm going to need a few days to process everything that we've experienced. But, sometimes we of course focus on the struggles of Black people, but to come here and feel an empowerment, to feel the strength of our ancestors, to feel that we are working to vindicate them for all that they went through, but also working to create a better future for our future descendants, felt extremely empowering, and it's something that I will never forget.
How did you feel when our president, Nana Akufo-Addo, spoke about the fact that, yes, it is important that we have reparation for all the centuries of colonialism? And how did you feel? Because it wasn't just him, there were other prominent leaders, like you mentioned, from the African Union. Is this a shot in the arm for the reparation project?
Yes, I'll answer, then I'll let Dr. Enya answer. But I certainly think so, because we know that not having leaders on the continent joining in supporting this has been used as a wedge by the colonial powers.
To make it difficult,
to delegitimize our struggle for reparations by saying, well, even people on the continent don't think that this is something that we should be doing. So it removes that wedge that the colonial powers have used in order to deny what, in fact, they do owe to those of us in the diaspora and on the continent.
Right. Amara?
Absolutely. I mean, we know that not only is this a project that engages the masses, the grassroots, the people, but we had to have leadership also stepping in to say this is a priority.
Right.
So to have a sitting president, a head of state, unequivocally stating that reparations is an imperative will send a strong message not just to the people, but also to other heads of state to say, yes, we should come together and develop a common position, because this issue is not going away anytime soon. And as leaders, we have a responsibility to carry this forward. So it was a huge moment for us.
We've had the Abuja Declaration. Now we've had the Accra Declaration. What next?
The next step is putting this into action. So we are building on the work that has happened from our ancestors, people that have come before us. But we knew we wanted to be intentional about coming together, bringing people together to develop a collective strategy. We are moving that strategy as it relates to government. We're moving that strategy as it relates to even religious institutions. We had a meeting at the Vatican a few weeks ago where we're talking about their role, absolutely, in initiating the transatlantic slave trade. We're moving this agenda now at the grassroots with all of the organizations that are part of this effort to say, wherever you are in the US, in South America, in Europe, in Asia, they are now operating. This declaration becomes an organizing mechanism to now develop that collective strategy to move forward. So we're really excited about the large amount of work ahead, but we're really excited about it.
I'll tell you what, I'm excited too. But moving forward, just a quick question. So in terms of reparation, what exactly are we looking at?
Well, I don't think that you can just give a kind of catch-all answer
because
to
honestly,
that.
I was saying this morning that while it's a good call, reparation cannot possibly be enough to account for what was done. There's no paying for that. But so in the concept of reparation, what are we looking at?
Right. So one, there can never be a paying of that debt, right, that accrued over more than 500 years, and I would argue is still accruing. And I also don't think you can say that there is one way that reparations will be achieved across the diaspora. We are in different circumstances. And different communities, I think, have to establish for themselves what does repair look like. Personally, for me, repair has multi-prongs. You have to, one, stop the harm that is currently occurring. You have to have financial reparations. All of these systems, slavery and colonialism and apartheid, were systems of economic exploitation.
Right.
And Black people are in forced poverty. We are not in poverty because we don't want to work hard. We're in poverty because entire systems were set up to extract wealth from us and deliver that wealth to the colonial powers. So I think we have to stop the current harms, we have to do financial repair, and then there has to be a period of atonement and acknowledgement. My work, the 1619 Project, exists because we have not wanted white people, whether they're in America, whether they are in South America, whether they are in Europe, have not wanted to acknowledge what has been done and the way that that legacy continues to shape our modern society.
Right.
So that's my ideas. I know Dr. Enya has others, but I really think the hardest work we have to do is creating the political landscape that allows reparations to move forward.
Right.
How would it be achieved? What would it look like? That's frankly the easiest part of this struggle. The hardest part is actually convincing enough people in power that this is what must be done. And as
Right.
Frederick Douglass said, you know, power concedes nothing without a demand. And so we are here trying to make that demand.
It's interesting you quote Frederick Douglass there. But just to wrap the conversation, as I take your final thoughts, we've spoken, you talk about the system and, for example, negative terms of trade. That is a huge part of the system because there is the neo-colonialist angle to the conversation as well. But as we wrap the conversation, what would be your parting words? And can we expect another summit sometime soon?
Well, there will definitely be additional gatherings. We've already started some of those initial conversations,
Right.
Really to delve deeper into some of the things that we were able to touch on in this gathering. But it is, it is the information sharing. We want people to learn, have a more deep understanding of what we mean when we say reparations.
Right.
It is not just the compensation component, it is the transformation of these existing systems to ensure that there is no repetition of the harm. That's one of the pillars of reparations, a guarantee of non-repetition. So we have to change the systems and structures, and that implies government, leadership, NGOs, civil society,
Right.
all engaging together in this work. And so we have this strategy that we're moving forward, but it involves additional dialogue, public information sharing, and relationship building within the continent, but also between the continent and the diaspora.
Okay, 30 seconds and it's a wrap. We have to get out.
We just hope that this will be the start of future conversations that we will see. As Dr. Enya said, we are planning to hold these summits in other places, and that when we look back, this will be seen as a historic moment where we were able to finally move forward on what generations of our ancestors had been working toward.
Definitely historic. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us in the studio and on the AM show. Dr. Amra Enya, President Global Black, and then Nicole Hannah Jones, who is with the project as well. We wrap the conversation at this juncture. Thank you for all of you who have done the watching. Of course, Bernice Abubedu Lanza came to us from the West Hills Mall today. Let's connect again, same time on Monday. Up next, Joy News Desk.